This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight now, we bring you a discussion on Atmanirbhar Bharat, economic growth with reforms. The participants are Shishir Sinha, economic analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent.
In his keynote address yesterday at ASSOCHAM Foundation Week 2020, the Prime Minister talked about the importance of reforms in making India an attractive investment destination for the world. He talked about the steps the Indian industry needs to take to make India self-reliant with a long-term perspective. In fact, the fiscal stimulus package of the government to support the pandemic-hit economy has been called Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, which, along with immediate relief, focuses on reforms aimed at long-term development of the economy. Can you tell us, Shishir, about the importance of a reform-centric approach of the government towards economic growth in a developing country like India?
First of all, we need to understand that why Prime Minister is talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat again and again, and why he is talking about reforms related with it. And the most important thing is he is talking more about investment to be attracted from abroad. So this is happening because of the confusion on the concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliance. Normally people say that self-reliance or Atmanirbhar means only you have to do yourself. But there are certain other things which you need support from the outside. And that is why Prime Minister used the word concept of why not has changed from why not India. And that shows that the foreign investors have a deep confidence in India. There are 4 reasons for that. We call it as the 4D. One is the democracy. Of course, it's a known factor that India is a democratic country. The second one is the demographic dividend. Demographic dividend means our 65% population is below the age of 35. The third one is the demand. And the fourth one is the diversified demand. These are the 4 Ds which are supporting the reform initiative. So on the one hand, government is announcing various reform measures, and at the same time it is providing a kind of market to investor, whether it is a domestic investor or the foreign investor. So that is why I think the entire discussion, whatsoever Prime Minister said during the ASSOCHAM convention, the focus was that reform we are initiating, measures we are taking, you have everything to take advantage of this reform.
As you said, the global narrative has shifted from why India to why not India. So what do you feel are the major factors behind this shift in paradigm of global investors?
Why people are coming to India? When an investor is investing money in any country, the most important thing he knows that what kind of return he is going to get. And since we are talking about 4D, that is adding to the return. When the people are coming to India, they are comparing with, say, some other emerging economy. So what kind of return is there? What kind of ease of doing environment is there? What kind of future prospect is there? And considering all those things, they are putting money in a particular country. India is providing all those things. And that is why putting money in India to why not putting money in.
Shishir, the Prime Minister said FPI, the foreign portfolio investment at record highs, and foreign direct investment accelerating at 15% during the ongoing COVID challenge period is a testimony of world's trust in Indian economy. And he urged the industry to do domestic investment in line with the increased confidence of the world. Do you see both public and private investment in the economy picking up pace soon? Are the signs of the same already visible in GST, IIP, PMI numbers?
You are talking about many of the high-frequency economic indicators. We call these as the high-frequency economic indicator, whether you are talking about the GST collection, whether you're talking about IIP, whether you're talking about e-way bill, whether you talk about various other things like there are the direct tax collection, then the toll collection and all those things. Second part of your question, the public investment versus the private investment. Unfortunately, private investment is not picking up. That's a fact, and which the government has mentioned many a times on many of the platforms. Now, government is providing all kind of investment. When we are talking about, in your first question, you mentioned about Atmanirbhar Bharat package. That's a fiscal stimulus. You should remember that the budget size was just 30 lakh crore plus. And with the help of Atmanirbhar Bharat, another 30 lakh crore plus has been put into the country. So public investment is very high. Now the private investment needs to be put in or to take place at a greater speed. And that is why the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister or various ministers, they are urging, rather I use the word urging, they are requesting the industry to put money. And the other thing which Prime Minister rightly mentioned about the R&D. Because research and development, Indian companies have a very poor record in research and development. And the problem is that when they are taking technology from outside, they have to pay for that. That affects their balance sheet. That affects their profitability. So R&D is one-time investment, like Prime Minister highlighted that factor. It is a one-kind investment. When you put money in R&D, it gives you money for a longer period. So public investment along with investment in R&D by the private companies and with support from the public investment, that will certainly make the entire economy to take the economy on a higher growth path.
So in fact, it will take us towards self-reliance also. The Prime Minister also talked about the next industrial revolution being round the corner, rapidly approaching. So you feel that the thrust on R&D is important in such a scenario to keep pace in a technology-centric world?
Certainly, because R&D is one thing which gives you extra advantage. I mean, you take example of China, you take example of US, you take of any other developed countries, why they have grown so much in industrial stature. One thing, they have put more and more money in the R&D thing. And that is why they are providing all kind of ground for the higher industrial growth or higher economic growth. So when we are talking about the next round of industrial revolution, that will be possible only when the private companies or the Indian companies are ready to support into that. And that support will come only when they have a good R&D background, they have good patent, they have good control over the technology. If they are having all those things, they will be able to contribute in much bigger way in the next round of industrial revolution.
Shishir, reforms have been brought in diverse sectors like manufacturing, farming, taxation and labour. The rates for the corporates are among the most competitive in the world. There is steady improvement in our ease of doing business rankings. PLI, Production Linked Incentive Scheme, for promoting manufacturing has been extended to 10 major sectors of the economy. How do you see these reforms boosting Make in India and growth of the economy?
Let us begin with the corporate tax reduction that took place in 2019. And of course, the rate of 22% for the existing one and 15% for the newer investment. That is lowest in Asia and one of the lowest in the world. So certainly that is going to invite more and more investors. That is going to encourage more and more investors to put money into the country. We should also remember that during the US-China tariff war, many of the companies are planning to shift from China. Many of the companies have already shifted, but their destination was Vietnam or Philippines or Indonesia or South Asia. Now, how to bring more and more companies into India? One of the major handset manufacturer, Apple, they have set up an assembly plant. Like these kind of companies, they are interested into coming into India. So corporate tax is providing one of the things. The second is the GST. Since GST is one thing which is providing one nation, one market concept. So for an investor, he is not supposed to file so many returns if there is just one taxation system. Then the third important thing is, are we talking about single window thing? Because India is having a federal structure. You can't just think about what the center is doing. You also need to think about what the states are providing. So there are many clearances which you are supposed to take from the state government or from the local bodies. Do we have a kind of single window kind of system which will benefit or which will help the foreign investor? There are various talks are going on that how to provide a single window kind of system. So along with the lower taxation, simple taxation, better compliance system, along with single window system, that will certainly help the investor to put money in the country and take high return from that.
Shishir, if you can expand a little more on that, what do you think is the role of state governments in implementing reforms and attracting investment?
You must have heard about ease of doing business ranking at the state level. Now we are also talking about ease of doing business at the district level. So when we have this kind of arrangement, there will be a competition among various states. There will be a competition among districts to do much better things. Today I can give you one example. When the Atmanirbhar Bharat package was announced, there was a special component of additional borrowing of 2%, and that was subject to 4 reform process. One was One Nation, One Card, the second one was ease of doing business, and then the 2 other things. Now today, Center has come out with a statement where it has said that 5 states have been managed to do some remarkable work, or they have completed ease of doing business thing. They are going to get additional borrowing of say 16,000 or 17,000 crore rupees. This is providing an enabling environment where the states will be encouraged to go for more and more reforms.
It's a motivational kind of
thing, precisely. So one, you have ease of doing business. Then whatsoever step you are taking for reforms, there is a monetary incentive for that. There is a fiscal incentive for that. So these things will encourage competition among states to do more and more reforms. And when we are going to do ease of doing business ranking at the district level, just imagine that even within a state, there will be competition among the districts that how to provide more and more better environment for industrial activity.
The Prime Minister made a special mention of India's youth making a name in startups and the country's digital payments and other infrastructure. In 2019, startup ecosystem attracted $17.3 billion with annual growth of 60.15%, which was a 10-year high. So what do you feel is the significance of startup in our economic growth?
When we are talking about 65% population below the age of 35 years, and when we are talking about that people should have a tendency of giving job rather than applying for a job. So this kind of thing will certainly prompt youth to go for the startup. Fortunately, we have a department, a specific major for the startup thing. There are so many venture capitalists. All the big industrialists are now putting money into startups. So the resources are not a problem. The only thing is they need a kind of motivation. When you have a good policy, when the resources are available, not just from the external sources, but also within the country. So they will be encouraged to do so. And we have seen so many startups. Just take the example during the lockdown period. One particular startup in Mumbai, they started providing fresh vegetable. It was a startup and now it is doing a great business. In cities like tier 2 cities or tier 3 cities, we are seeing another set of startups which are doing the local kind of work, and they are getting good support from the people there, and they are also getting money. So I think the startup is the next round of industrial revolution, and when we are talking about next round of industrial revolution, startup will have a much bigger play. Now don't think about the big industry. Just think about how the startups are going to provide, because today it is the startup, tomorrow it will be the medium one, and day after it will be a big one.
Prime Minister has urged the industry to promote rural artisans on a global platform. So what role do you think the Indian industry or the startups can play to promote rural economy, both farming and non-farming?
If you take the example of a tribal market, there is a dedicated platform to market various products of various tribes. And that is giving a very good result. That is giving monetary benefit to the startup as well as to the tribal artisans. Now when we are talking about rural artisans, see, in rural area the problem is that there is too much dependency on farming activity. And we all know that 86% of our farmers are very small and marginal, having less than 2 hectares of land. So there is too much disguised unemployment there. Now, how to remove this kind of disparity? How to remove this kind of problem? What kind of mechanism we can provide? And if there are certain industries which are called as the rural-based industries, some artisans are there, how to encourage them to go for that rather than just dependent upon the farming activity. And if the startups are providing some kind of technological platform to these people, on the one hand they will be able to sell their produce, and at the same time if there is one industry, say at the rural level, say rural tourism, so startups can also help in promoting rural tourism. Those people who are in the rural area, they don't need to invest into the marketing thing or attracting tourists from there. There is a startup who is going to support these people.
The Prime Minister spoke about India being the pharmacy of the world during the pandemic, and he also talked about how in vaccines also we are going to not only be helping our own country but also other countries. So how important do you feel is it to expand our exports and consolidate our position in the world supply chain? Is that also part of our aim of being self-reliant?
COVID has proved that we are going to be the next big player in the farm. Of course, we are already there. We are supplying. But the problem is the patent. The problem is the R&D. And that is why if we combine all those, patent, R&D and the production capacity, we have developed production capacity. Now the time has come to go for more and more patent. Now the time has come to go for more and more R&D. So if we are able to do so, then we will be a big player in terms of pharmaceuticals, in terms of global supply chain. Please remember, we have a very small share in global supply chain. Overall, we have just 2 or 3%. We need to increase that. And pharmaceutical can help you to increase to a certain level.
As we all know, reforms is a dynamic and ongoing process for any economy, especially a developing economy. And now the budget is about few days away, we can say. Thank you so much, Shishir, for this comprehensive discussion.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on Atmanirbhar Bharat, economic growth with reforms. The participants were Shishir Sinha, economic analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.